All right, welcome back everyone to another NFL team preview video for the 2020 season. Today we continue on with the NFC East, and we're going to today look at the New York Football Giants. Let's begin. All right, so it's been 6-7 days since I've last uploaded, and I just want to do a little aside here that a lot of things have changed. The outlook for the football season does not look good. The Power 5 conferences have had an emergency meeting today. Things might get shut down at the collegiate level for good until at least spring. I know the FCS is already on life support with a lot of its football programs and conferences deciding to delay. And the other day, the Missouri Valley Football Conference, which is the home of my college, Youngstown State University, has decided to postpone until spring. So things look pretty bleak for football in general this year. And I don't think, at least at this juncture, doesn't look like we're going to get anything until 2021. But at the same time, the NFL is still going through their normal schedule. They're doing roster cutdowns. For now, we're going to pretend that they're still going to have a season. The hockey and basketball experiments are absolutely working. If you can do this in a bubble, you can have success. If you can't do this in a bubble, you're going to struggle. And did that just rhyme? You're going to struggle, as we've seen with Major League Baseball. I think another series between the Cardinals and the Pirates has just been postponed today. So the baseball is struggling. Hockey and basketball are doing well inside their bubbles. The bubble program works. If you can do it in a bubble, you can absolutely make sports work. The problem is football and baseball don't have that luxury of being able to do that with a regular season. So, with a playoff scenario, yeah, I could see that happening. But in this world with the NFL season, it's not looking good. So it remains to be seen what happens to college football. I believe it is on the brink of being canceled, and the NFL might suffer the same fate. But for the time being, we're going to forge ahead, get all these team previews done, and then go from there. So thanks for sticking around. All right, so today we're talking about the New York Giants. We'll take a look at the 2019 recap first. They were 4-12 overall last year. Their offense ranked 23rd in the league. They were 18th in passing, 19th in rushing. Defense ranked 25th in the league. They were 28th against the pass, 20th against the run. Joe Judge is your new head coach, who I believe is the third one in 3 or 4 years. You have to correct me if I'm wrong on that. It's his first job, so he has a 0-0 clean slate record. Snapshot of the previous 4 years. In 2018, they were 5-11. 2017, 3-13. 2016, 11-5, and 2015, 6-10. So before we move on to the starting depth chart, real quick aside about Dave Gettleman, who has been the butt of a lot of jokes for the past 3 seasons. I think this previous draft and offseason have shown that he gets, he has a process. He's just very bad at explaining it. A lot of people are going to mock the Daniel Jones pick for years to come, especially if he doesn't work out. But at the time, he got the player that he wanted, and I can't really fault him for that. So that is kind of where I stand on Dave Gettleman. His process, at least this year, seems to make sense. He spent a lot of his draft picks getting really key core players who I think are going to be able to pan out and absolutely help this team. This team could surprise. It all depends on the maturation process of the younger players, and we'll see how that goes. So let's take a look at the starting projected depth chart, first starting with the offense. And, of course, we already have talked about Daniel Jones at the quarterback position. You have Saquon Barkley back there at running back, one of the better NFL running backs, as opposed to what? One of the better running backs in the league. The weapons around him, we have Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, and, of course, way back there, Darius Slayton, who had a surprisingly decent rookie year, at least in my opinion. And I'm excited to see what he can do in a second year. For the tight end position, we have Evan Engram, who could potentially be one of the best tight ends in the league. They just have to figure things out with him. For the offensive line, this is where I struggled. Now, Giants fans, you're going to have to help me out with Nate Sauter, of course, opting out the season. That leaves you without a left tackle. Thank God you drafted Andrew Thomas out of Georgia with a 4th overall pick. So I believe just plug Thomas right in there. Of course, you've got Will Hernandez, Spencer Pulley, Kevin Zeitler, and then the right tackle position, where I think Andrew Thomas was originally going to be, is now a question mark. Do you put Cam Fleming there, who they signed in free agency? Do you go with Pert, who was drafted in the 3rd round? I'm not sure. So I put Fleming in because I figured, why not? Moving on to the defense, a little bit more easy to figure out until we get to one specific player. But starting with the defensive line, you, of course, have Williams, Tomlinson, and Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence is one of the better draft picks that I thought Gettleman made, that people were kind of like nitpicking a little bit, but I think he's going to be pretty good. For the linebacker position, Marcus Golden returns. Connolly, they signed Blake Martinez from Green Bay, who I'm not the biggest Blake Martinez fan, having watched him in Green Bay, but maybe he just didn't fit that scheme, and maybe a change of scenery will do him good. And then for the other position, I went with Fackrell. I went with Fackrell over Lorenzo Carter and O'Shane Zimenez. So I'm not quite sure how Giants fans are going to respond to that. You know, maybe they see something in Lorenzo Carter that he's worthy to be the starting in a starting spot this year. So you're gonna have to let me know on that one. I just went with, you know, of course he had the 10 sacks last year, sort of a breakout season in Green Bay. So you know, just let me know what you think about that. Maybe Lorenzo Carter is worthy of a starting spot this year, at least at this point. For the secondary, this is where things are a little bit tough. Of course, you have Jabril Peppers and Xavier McKinney as your starting safeties. After that, the depth is pretty bad. You know, I'm not really sure what they're doing with Julian Love. In one projected depth chart, I saw him listed as a safety for a backup position. Another projected depth chart, I saw him listed as a nickel corner. So I'm not really sure where he fits into this. So I kind of just left him out of the loop. For your starting corners, I went with Bradbury, the free agent pickup. And then, of course, we got to talk about Deandre Baker, who a couple days ago was faced with 4 felony charges, and I'm going to leave him off the depth chart because I don't think he's going to make it, because those are pretty serious. So I penciled in Cockrell, who they picked up in free agency. Now, it's pretty tough when you have another player in this position that opted out of the season. I believe it was Beal. So your depth is already hurting now that you lose 2 players, one to the opt-out, and then one to a potential horrific legal situation. So the secondary is a little but I think that there's some decent young players there, especially with Xavier McKinney, who should have been a first-round pick last year, who ended up sliding into the second round, as did all safeties, including Grant Delpit. So that is your projected starting depth chart for the 2020 season. Let's go ahead and take a look at the schedule real quick. We got the Steelers as a home opener, on the road against the Bears, home game against the 49ers, Rams, Cowboys, on the road, Washington football team in week 6 at home, Eagles on the road, and Bucks at home. Tom Brady comes to town in week 8 to round out the first half of the season. Now, first half of the season, I noticed something. The first 4 weeks, whoever makes the schedule hates Daniel Jones, because look what they did to him. TJ Watt, Khalil Mack, Bosa, Aaron Donald. That is brutal. That is a brutal first month of this schedule for Daniel Jones, especially behind an offensive line that is going to feature a rookie left tackle and a question mark at right tackle. So you just got to hope the interior can hold its own. Moving on to the second half of the schedule, Washington football team opens up at week 9. Philadelphia Eagles are home game at week 10, and then we got a bye week in week 11, and then 2 straight back-to-back games on the road with the Bengals and Seahawks. Every time you go to Seattle, I don't care what team it is, every time you go to Seattle, that's brutal. And then we got 2 home games against the Cardinals and Browns. We have a road game against the Ravens, and then a home game against the Cowboys. Not the greatest schedule if you're hoping for an improvement here. And again, it's going to come down to what Joe Judge can get out of his younger players this season. You know, you've got some pretty stiff competition. That first month of the schedule is pretty tough. And then of course, you got matched up with the AFC North, which is brutal because that means you have to face the Ravens as well. And then the road trip to Seattle is never easy for anyone. So the schedule is going to be pretty hard this year, so Giants fans, get ready. I think you could have a surprise season, but I think maybe about 6 wins are probably in your future. I don't know. Yeah, but I'd say 6 or 7 would probably be fair. At least that's an improvement, right? You know, that's an improvement when it comes to 4-12. 3 big storylines that I'm looking at this year. Of course, the offensive line, and then of course Deandre Baker. Is Deandre Baker done? I don't know. You know, these legal things always have a weird way of working themselves out, or he could just never see a football field again. And then for the third big storyline, I went with turnovers because they had a really bad turnover differential last season. I believe it was -17. So that's something that they're absolutely going to have to correct if they want to get to that 7-6 win mark. So that is going to do it for the preview of the NFL New York Football Giants. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one.